Hello everyone, it's Gianna. I hope you're all doing great. I know that this video is a long time coming, and I'm going to be honest, it did take me the past couple of weeks to really contemplate if filming a video like this was a good idea, just because I wasn't really sure what I was going to say. I knew that I had to share what happened, especially for those people that woke up early to watch the live show. The people that supported me throughout the entire journey by sharing the social media posts, and the people that were always sending me words of encouragement throughout my time in Oaxaca, Mexico, and even after that. I do want to add that I took the past couple of weeks in Los Angeles to really reflect on what had happened, to just gather my emotions. I can't say that I have completely been able to absorb what had happened. I think all of us girls are still in shock, but I do want to thank all of you for allowing me to process what had happened in the past 2 weeks while I was in LA. And right now I am in the other country that I call home. I'm in Canada, in my city of Mississauga, Ontario, which is why I felt even more safe filming a video like this. I think one of the biggest things that I wanted to address were the comments of people saying that I did not do my research prior to entering the pageant. If there's anyone that knows me, you know that I'm always trying to make sure that I know what I'm getting into. I am a risk taker, and I've always prided myself on that. But I did have my hesitations before going to Oaxaca, Mexico. So my team and I did everything that we can to make sure that what I was entering was safe. I asked for a schedule and a contract immediately, and they were able to provide that. Now, these same organizers also staged a Miss Glamour International pageant months prior to Miss Glamour International. My national director had actually sent his own candidate to the teen edition, where the girl placed very well. There was a coronation night, they had photo shoots, they had events, and I think that's what sold me into actually going, knowing that these organizers had prior experience and that, you know, other girls were able to participate in a pageant under them. I still had my precautions, but I would constantly check their social media accounts and see the girls in the Miss Glamour International edition that they were posting, that were joining. A lot of these girls had, you know, their respective titles on their social media accounts. So I thought that it was legit for the most part. Of course, I still had a guard up even throughout the entire pageant journey, which I'm thankful for because I think that's the reason why I made it home safely. And even when I got to the airport in Oaxaca, I was picked up by the organizers. There was an airport transfer. And as soon as I got to the hotel, there were more than 10 members of the press waiting there for me. My roommate, Miss Puerto Rico, was already there. She was very, very beautiful. And I remember immediately thinking, wow, it seems like the caliber of girls that they got for this pageant are going to be incredible, just looking at Miss Puerto Rico. And I remember, of course, arriving there the first night, thinking, where are the other candidates? And even before I came, they told us that there would be at least 20 candidates. And when I got there the first night, they said, the other candidates are coming. I asked how many, and they said, there are 20 of you. So for those asking why I chose to join a pageant where there were only 6 candidates, before I came, they said that there would be 20. And you really don't know which promises of the organization are going to be fulfilled until you arrive at the actual pageant. So I knew that there would be hiccups, especially this pageant being on its first year. But I guess I didn't know that the turnout would be this chaotic. I started to get my apprehensions after the 4th day. So then there were only 6 of us, but even then they were still promising that potentially more girls could come if the travel restrictions at their countries were eased, or if their national directors found a way for them to arrive. So even when there were only 6 of us, we were still hopeful that more girls would be joining us because that's what the organizers made it seem. But my apprehensions came from the fact that I was the only one of the 6 candidates who could not speak any Spanish, understand any Spanish. And before I came, I was promised a translator. 4th day in, I didn't get that. So half of the time until then, I really didn't know what was going on. I actually messaged my team back in the Philippines, my national director, and my parents. And I told them that I wanted to go home. So everyone that I asked and told that I wanted to go home were in full support of me. And I actually raised that to the organizers, that I wasn't completely comfortable not knowing the language and not knowing what was going on, and that I would have preferred going home. And the organizers told me that their biggest following of the pageant of their social media accounts were Filipinos, and the Filipino pageant community would be very disappointed if I had backed out. That is kind of what took over me. And I did discuss it with a few of the candidates that I did want to go home, and they also told me that, you know, we were all way too far in. After all of those travel hours, after all the sacrifices we made back home, we were all way too far in to just quit midway. But they did all have their doubts as well. And I am really thankful to my co-candidates because they were the ones who discussed within themselves to translate everything for me and to make me feel included. So one of the biggest things that I wanted to address was the rumor that I lent money to the organizers and to the organization. I've always prided myself in being completely transparent with my audiences, so I will say that that is true. But not with the same narrative that I've been reading online. A couple of days before the coronation night, we had it in our schedule that we would be buying school supplies for the marginalized communities in Oaxaca, Mexico. We had lunch that day, and the organizers told us girls that we needed to provide $40 for the school supplies. And of course, we were all willing to do so. That same night, the organizers had asked if they could borrow money from me. And I was very, of course, extremely hesitant at first. Also because I was the delegate there who couldn't understand the native tongue and had nobody with her. So I wasn't sure about the protection that I would get. The organizers promised me that they would pay me the amount the next day. But of course I was still hesitant. So I said I'll see. And I told them that I wasn't sure if my card was working and unlocked to be used in Mexico. From what I had understood, that money was going to be for the charity event to buy school supplies. The next morning, the organizers came knocking on my door with a card terminal. And in their words, it was to see if my card was working. So I said, okay, we can check if my card was working. Little did I know that they already punched in the amount that they wanted to borrow. And the transaction went through. I was in shock then. Wasn't sure if I was going to tell any of the other girls about it. But they promised me that they would be paying me within the next 24 hours. And to our surprise, the charity event didn't push through. And that's actually when the event started to not push through. I think the conclusion and the understanding that we always tried to come to was this was the pageant's first year, that, you know, they still needed help with figuring out all the kinks, and that we had to be more patient with them. We were being way too patient. So this is when it actually all went down, the coronation night. The morning of the coronation night, I asked for the schedule and we were told that we had to have hair and makeup done by 1 p.m., that rehearsals were at 3 p.m. At 5 p.m. we would have our preliminary interviews, which was bumped from a couple of days before. And then the coronation night would be at 8 p.m. At 1 p.m. I had my hair and makeup done already. And a few hours before that, I actually had virtual trainings with my Kagandahan Flores family for my pasarela and for my Q&A. So I was ready to get that crown. Come 3 p.m. they told us that rehearsals were actually moved to 7 p.m. because the stage wasn't ready yet. And then after that we would have our preliminary interviews. And then after that was the coronation night. And that's when I started to get really confused. Around 5 p.m. the girls messaged me to join them in the hotel room. They were all there. All of them were with their parents or with their national directors. And they told me that they had found out the stage was not ready. The crown was not there. There were no judges. There is no host. Nothing. At that point, I was in immediate shock. I didn't really know what to do. Of course, when I first found out, I was still hopeful that somehow the coronation night was going to push through. We gave the organizers a couple of hours. Maybe they'll be able to find a way for it to push through. And they didn't. So at that point, I called my parents, I called the national director, I called my team, I called my camp. I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. And when we confronted the organizers, they admitted that they didn't have any sponsors, that nothing was really ready. And at that point is when in unison all of us girls decided to not push through with the show. We were going to make that decision for ourselves and not these organizers who had led us blindly for the past couple of weeks. We reminded ourselves that we were an excellent caliber of women who had careers, who were educated, who had done well in pageants prior. So we weren't going to participate in a show that was put together last minute, or in a show that didn't have all the provisions, which we found out as well that the prizes that they had promised were not going to be given. And I did ask the organizers directly if they had that planned, if they could stage the show the next day, would there be a host, would there be judges? And they still did not have that. Of course, we were all very emotional. We didn't know our next moves at the moment. So if I had spoken out, I didn't know how safe I would be. So I don't know what they were planning to happen. I am so proud of how my co-candidates have handled the situation, because they were really my rock throughout this entire shocking experience. So I think the next day after all of this happened was the hardest for all of us girls. My entire team, my national director, my family, my friends, they were all consistently messaging me asking if I was okay. And I didn't want them to be concerned. So I do want to say a huge thank you to Miss Puerto Rico, my best friend in the entire pageant, Samaris, and her family for really taking care of me. I want to clarify that no, nobody was ever left hungry. Nobody begged for money. And nobody was left on the streets. As I mentioned earlier, a huge dream of ours was vanished, was crushed, disappeared in a blink of an eye. But I don't think that this experience is what's going to stop us from pursuing the rest of our endeavors. And I'm so excited to be pursuing other industries. So I'm excited to announce that this past month, I was able to finally sign with a major television network in the Philippines. And as a lot of you know as well, I am pursuing my master's degree in psychology at Harvard. So I hope to continue to pursue that, and I'm planning to focus on that now too. In this past year, I've also been working on writing a book. So I hope you can support me in that, and I'm going to be sharing about all my experiences, not just in pageantry, but as a sports reporter in the entertainment industry through my travels and being a second-generation immigrant too. I'm so grateful for all of the love that I've received in the past few months, not just when this fiasco happened, but even during the pageant in itself, when people have encouraged me and believed in my ability to break through the barriers of beauty and represent something that is unique, someone that is confident, and someone that is intelligently outspoken. And I wish I can give each and every one of you a hug right now. I hope that this video answered a lot of your questions. And if you have any more questions, my social media accounts are always open. I'm excited to be back in the Philippines next week. I hope that you are all safe, and I'm sending my love to all of you. Maraming salamat po.